welcome to my channel. It's Rafael Gutierrez. Today I'm going to talk about rotating the tibia for power. And there's two types of rotations. One of them is medial rotation, which means if you're looking at this tibia, pretty much a big bone that makes a chin, you're rotating it so it actually comes across into the body. Lateral rotation would be if this one was also going here. So if you actually think about it, both of them would be working together, moving in the same direction to get maximum force. Now, this was actually done I noticed it was done in golf. It's done in batting with a baseball bat, with a cricket bat. It's done in pitching. Anytime you need a lot of power, you actually do use that rotation. And as I talk about this, there are certain things that you may have read which seem kind of to contradict this. It doesn't. It's just that there's another level of anatomy always. And I will talk about that. But before I do, I'm going to mention I'm actually fortunate in that I was trained by a gentleman who told me to use what I know to modify my karate. He didn't want my karate to be stagnant. He wanted it to constantly be changing. And I know that in the past there were actually people who have said, oh, we don't change the katas. We don't change the way things are done. And I'm going to use this book, which is one of the translations of Funakoshi's book, one of the original ones, which uses the pictures. And over here you can see that he actually is using pretty high stances for the katas. And I mentioned this to someone who said, well, it was because he was older when he took those pictures, and he ended up changing them because he could no longer do it because of his knees. The problem with that is if you look at the picture next to it, you notice he can actually get down really low and doesn't seem to have much problem with his knees. I actually found that in a lot of books. Karate was changed by people because of certain other circumstances. And I'm not going to talk about why. Just know that every martial art will change. If you don't believe me, look around. If you look at tournaments, you're going to see that people change to make judges happy. If you look at MMA, people will change it so it works. And so that's one of the big things with any martial art. It's going to change for the effect of the individual or what the individual wants. And so there are changes that always happen. And it happens in a lot of things. I'm not going to go too much more on changes to mention that. So we do have changes. Now, there are different things you can do. You can use changes based on aesthetics, pretty much how something looks, and you can get injuries because it may not be proper with the body, or you may be losing power. You may not get the power that you really want. And so we can actually use also modeling and science and numbers. Now, I will tell you something I did, which I did for just to see what would happen. I was looking at the COVID infection rates, and I didn't want to look at small numbers. I wanted to look at the big ones because those tend to change slower than the small ones. So, for instance, if you look at small ones, it's going up and down all over the place. Now, if you look at every million cases of infections, you can actually see certain patterns. So what I did is I actually looked, and I saw that it took 3 months to go from 12 or 14, I can't remember, to 1 million. It took 2 more months for it to go to 2 million. So it went from 1 million in 3 months to 1 million in 2 months to 1 million in 1 month. So I actually calculated, I did a little bit of math, and I kind of found out that somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks, we should reach 4 million. And so I did it, and I figured I'd give myself a little leeway just in case I was a little off. Do the 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. That way, if I'm off, it's not by much. Well, that's actually one of the funny parts is, as I actually looked at my formula, I looked at how many new cases of COVID there were yesterday. And I found that it was almost 250,000, which means if it were linear, in 4 days, we would reach 4 million. Now, the thing is, the formula might still work. It may just be a fluke that it popped up more than it was supposed to. But the other thing that could happen is we changed our behavior. And that's something that people will have to decide for themselves what they look. I tend to like to look at what the CDC, NIH, and the American Medical Association have to say. But, if you want to believe someone without medical experience, that's your choice. So I actually wrote some stuff down already, and I hope it is actually more visible today. So when we're rotating the tibia, The muscles that are actually involved in rotating the tibia are not in the ankle or even on the tibia where you see most of the muscles. They're actually going to be on the femur, I'm sorry. They're going to be on the femur. And they're really, most of them are going to be in the back of the leg and what people call the hamstrings. Funny part is most people think of hamstrings as one muscle. It's actually a muscle group, and the muscle group really, when it's used in walking, for instance, it actually is used, one side is used sometimes, the other side is used the other. So what I mean is it's like the medial side of the left leg will be used sometimes, the lateral side of the left leg will be used sometimes of the hamstring. So we do have rotations, and like I said, you see this rotation in golf and batting and pitching. In baseball, both baseball and cricket, I found out. And so there's a reason for this. If you think about it, the whole point of hitting something with the ball or bat, the whole reason of hitting something with the bat or throwing or club or throwing something is to get the most power you can. And so one of the things I found is, if you look at the support, pretty much I'm breaking the legs down into supporting and receiving leg. What I mean is the leg that's supporting most of the weight when you begin the move, and the one that's getting the weight on the other side. So if you look at the supporting leg, we'll use the right leg first. It tends to have all the weight on it, and really you can even raise your big toe a little, I've noticed, and come down, rotating it down. Now, to do this, you do have the muscles, for instance, the Tibialis Anterior. It's a muscle that comes here to the, pretty much to the foot. I don't want to go into the metatarsals it goes into. And you can pull off the foot, put the weight on the outside of the ankle, on the outside of the foot, and then when you actually rotate your knee medially, so the tibia ends up moving this way, you end up actually pulling your weight. Your center of gravity shifts forward, which means you actually are using center of gravity. You're using your force, you're using your weight for power, and actually gravity, not just the rotation. Now, for us to get that medial rotation, we're using muscles on the back of the leg, namely the popliteus, the semimembranosus, and the semitendinosus. These are actually on the medial side of the back of your leg in the hamstrings area. Now, as you do that, weight is actually going to be received onto the left leg in this case. And so what we have is we have the lateral rotators, meaning the tibia on the other side is going to move away from the body. And to do that, you use the biceps femoris, which is the big muscle on the back lateral side of the hamstrings group. And you have the sartorius, which is actually a muscle that's going from pretty much your anterior superior iliac spine, so the spine at the end on your hip, all the way to the medial portion of your knee. And so when it contracts, it pulls the knee outward a little bit. And so these are actually the muscles that are going to help you rotate your body so you can get that swing if you're in baseball or playing golf. Now, one thing you'll notice is a lot of times the swing doesn't happen completely. It's stopped halfway through. And the reason is to protect the knee joint. So you actually may start doing the lateral rotators, and then before you actually start getting that, you stop and you rotate medially, so you stop the force from going in. Like I said, this is you see in a lot of different sports, and I did want to keep this short. Next time I'm actually going to go up the leg, so I'm going to use what most people refer to as a quadriceps group and the gluteal group to develop even more power. And then one thing you'll notice is this is happening on both legs, so you're using this kind of wheel-like thing on your hips, on your os coxae technically, to get more power. Now, why do we want as much power as we can from the legs? Well, think of the size of the muscles in the legs. Think of what they're used to doing. Think of how much force they're able to maintain. And now put that force in something small. Remember, the force is mass times acceleration. So if the force stays the same, we're really more interested in kinetic energy, by the way, but we'll use force for this. It means that the swinging of the arm will actually be mass times acceleration. You'll actually amplify how fast the acceleration. You're going to end up getting a lot more kinetic energy from the arm than you would if you actually locked everything together, but we'll get to that later. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to keep it short. It's less than 10 minutes, so I managed to do it. If there's any questions, please put them on the comments, or you can send me messages directly. I will answer them. And if you mention what school you're from and you want me to mention your dojo when you answer your questions, I will. I hope you enjoy this. And like I said, I am working on on an anatomy, anatomy/kinesiology book for martial artists, which is going to have all this plus a lot more. Just because, hey, why would you want to buy something that only comes that you can get free from YouTube, right? I hope you enjoy this and have a nice day.